Hey guys, thanks for bearing with us there. My name is Melissa Fairbrother. I am a senior manager for product launch here at ServiceNow. Really excited to have you all here with us. And I've also got my friend here, Juha from Suffogate, who is going to be speaking to Robots Need Service Management Platform 2. So if that's not where you thought you were, then find where you need to be, but this is what's going on here today. I also wanted to let you know that if you're looking for any sessions that have London-specific content in them, you can go to the community and do a search for Start Your Journey, and it'll show you the remaining sessions that have London content. And I feel obligated to say that since I'm the launch manager. Thank you so much, and I'll give it to Juha.
Hello everyone, my name is Juha Kujala. I'm from Suffogate and welcome to this session. Great to see so many of you here. Since you are at Knowledge, I believe you can agree that humans need service management platform. But why do robots need service management platform? That's the question in this presentation. And on the agenda, after the introductions, I will present 5 reasons why robots need a service management platform. Those reasons can be also considered as architecture principles that you could and should follow when designing architectures for robots and service management. But then we will take a look into a couple of specific technologies or use cases for robots. First one being chatbots or virtual agents. That's the term was used in the keynote this morning. And the other technology we will look into is robotic process automation, how that can then work together with service management platform and how those two should be designed to work together. And finally, at the end, I will also show a quick demo of how this fully automated chain could work already today and has been made to work in that demo. But let's then start with the introduction. So I have some 15 years of background in IT, started as a web developer in my own company, but since the past 10 years I've been working in the service management space, and about 6 years out of that with ServiceNow. I started with ServiceNow actually on the customer side, implementing that for service desk and SIAM needs at a company called Wärtsilä. And then before becoming a consultant, I was on the service provider side also implementing ServiceNow at Tieto. Now for the past 1 year I've been working as ServiceNow consultant at Suffogate. So have been looking at ServiceNow from 3 different angles. And this robotics has been something I've been really now focusing for 1.5 years in service management space. And Suffogate, personally I come from Finland, from Helsinki, but Suffogate operates in the Northern Europe, in the UK, Sweden, Denmark and Finland. We have some 500 employees in the area of business technology. Why do we call ourselves the business technology company? We see that IT is becoming so integral part of every business that it's really difficult to draw the line, and we think that you actually should have business technology management models rather than just focusing on the IT, and there's plenty of things to learn on both sides. But then Suffogate has been around for 15 years, and we've been working a lot in the service management area. How do we see that this has been maturing or developing this area? We picture this at 3 eras. So somewhere late 90s, early 2000, we were in the first era. I remember myself working with help desks, quite reactive ticketing approach, where the main focus was on just recording things and reacting to those tickets. But then in the past 10 years or so, we've been moving into the age of IT service management, and the key change there has been that now these tickets actually have a context. We define what are the services we provide, and we define the processes for management of those services, and when we then manage incidents or service requests or changes or anything like that, they have a context, and we can also report on the performance of the services and so on. So it's been ultimately about creating structures for those services and more structured management approach. That has also led to introduction of things like self-service, service catalog for requesting things and having workflow-based automation there. But what we see now and what we are working with our customers on is the move towards the third era, the era of ecosystem integration. And there we can really utilize the structure created in the second era to increase the level of automation. But what has happened in the second era sometimes that hasn't been that good for the end users is that humans have had to do certain things for the machines. So it's not the machines serving the humans, but the other way around. What I mean is that you need to go to a service portal, fill in a structured form, put the data into structured format so that the machine can work efficiently and the workflow can run. Now, what we see in the third era is actually changing this the other way around, so that we have technologies like chatbots that can actually understand unstructured conversation and more human type of language, and then it can make sense out of it, put it into a structured format and run automation. Also, analytics is really important, machine learning, for the same thing to better understand human type of communication. And naturally, this automation should take place across the ecosystem, not just within an enterprise, but SIAM, for example, as the service integration and management approach focuses on managing these services across the whole ecosystem. So that's how we see the development in this area, and now going forward then. What I hope you will learn in this session is, well, why do the robots need service management platform, but also how to design for sustainable use of robotics and AI, artificial intelligence, in the service management area. And finally, you will also see what can be already achieved with today's technologies. So, the 5 reasons why do robots need service management platform. The first reason is that the humans should have the right to say that I don't want to talk to a robot. Probably most of you saw the keynote this morning, and there was this virtual agent facilitating the discussion. But I think there should be a button somewhere where the human can say that no, I want the human to discuss. Or at least the robot should understand when it doesn't understand. And then when that happens, it's really important that there's smooth handover to human. This is the first reason why you need service management platform for the robots. The humans, we work on the service management platform. Service desk chat, for example, quite often is on ServiceNow. And if then the chatbot would be somewhere else, and when it doesn't understand, it would just state that, okay, now you need to log into that portal or call that number to continue the discussion. It's not very good user experience. It has to be smooth, and the human has to be able to continue the discussion, the conversation, right from where the robot was left off. I think that's the first reason, to have this smooth handover between the humans and the robots. The second reason then, you might have seen some movies about this. So we cannot let the robots to take over. What I mean is that in your processes you have business rules, you have process controls, you need to record certain things, your tasks, what was done, who was doing it, who approved this request. And these controls and rules you have in the processes, they should apply to the robots as well. It's really important for compliance purposes, but it's also really important for the consistent operating model, so that what we have seen in some customer cases is that the RPA, software robots, they pick up tasks from a mailbox, and then they do something, and maybe they have a log file somewhere, but there's no record of what they did, who approved it, what was the time frame that it was executed. So when service management platforms are there for managing the human work, I think in the very same way, also the work that robots do should be recorded and should be transparent. And actually, it's not just this kind of compliance question, but it's also about measuring the business case. It's really nice to understand that, okay, we have these teams working on this many tasks, but we also have these robots executing this many tasks, and what's the business case of investing into the robots. Third reason is that there is no AI without IA. AI, of course, is artificial intelligence, but with IA, I mean information architecture. So AI requires machine learning, and the machine learning requires good analytics. And what does the analytics require? Good data, obviously. And for data to be of good quality, you need really good information architecture. You need to understand the data objects, how they relate to each other, what are the relationships in the information architecture, and what do the different data objects actually mean. So in order to benefit from AI, you really need to have the information architecture in a good shape. So when we talk about this in service management context, where is your information architecture? Where's the data? It's obviously on your service management platform. So that's why for the AI to understand or to learn the context it operates in, service management platform is where you have this information architecture. I will come to a concrete example on this later on, but you need to understand, for example, about the user. What is my location? What are the services I'm entitled to? What are my assets? What are my current open incidents and so on? All of this is modeled in the information architecture of a service management platform. Reason number 4, robots go to school too. So how do we as human population learn and develop? We observe, then we build certain models, theories, and then we validate those models. This is called science, and we do this, for example, in the universities. And how do the robots then learn and evolve? If you think about the agent intelligence solution in ServiceNow, the machine learning capability, you take data from real life instance, you move it to this machine learning instance, you build a model, and then you validate that before you put it into production. So service management platform really is the university for the robots. That's where you can observe, that's where you can build the model and also validate it and later on then develop it further. So therefore the robots need service management platform as their school or university. And finally, the reason number 5 is that the robots may fail as well. So robotic process automation tools can be actually quite risky when there are changes to the different systems and they operate on the user interface. It might be that after a change, the robot doesn't know what to do anymore, it fails. And since we are in the early age of adopting this technology, we often see that there's no exception handling. When the robot fails, it just fails. But it would be really important that when the robot fails, it would actually create an incident automatically for somebody to handle the exception. And what it means also when it fails is that a task was left undone. So that task would be then automatically assigned to a human, and human would work on that then on the service management platform. So for exception handling, also the robots need service management platform. These are the 5 reasons, the architecture principles you should keep in mind when designing architectures for using robotics in service management. Now this, how we model this on kind of big picture, we've been using 3 steps or 3 phases here. So first one being the interaction with the user. Secondly, how do we fulfill user requests? And then thirdly, the machine learning, how we build this into a model that actually learns and evolves. And on this interaction part, I believe most of you have Service Portal. You might have Service Catalog there for requesting stuff, and you have knowledge base for self-service. On this interact part, the new thing are the virtual agents or chatbots. And that's a big improvement to traditional service portals where often the navigation structures can be rather complex. User needs to understand the terminology exactly to be able to navigate in that service portal and find the thing that they are looking for. A chatbot can bring a much more conversational experience. It can understand multiple different terms for one thing, and it can then guide the user through the right questions without having to user learn the terminology of the service provider. But then there might be users who don't want to go to your portal or they don't simply know about it. That's why it's important that actually this sort of conversational chatbot can be also published to many other channels. Today we saw the Teams, but also Slack, or today you will see Amazon Alexa in this demo, how that can be the front end or the user interface for handling the interactions with you, but then actually the dialogue is modeled there in the chatbot. Then finally we have understood with the interaction with the user that what is the request, what do they want. Then the fulfill part, that's where you have your IT service management processes. Here I use the terminology from IT for IT, but you have event, incident, problem, change processes. You have the request fulfillment there. Like said, you should not compromise on that. Those are the processes, of course, they need to be developed, but it should not be possible for the robots to kind of skip those. And there you have, for example, approvals. So obviously those approvals are really important, again, even if the robots do the work. For work fulfillment, you often have workflows. You might have agent intelligence to route the work automatically, even if it's unstructured request. But how does the RPA then position here? So RPA, robotic process automation, refers to a software robot that actually does the work on the user interface, but it does it automatically. So it can do clicking and copy pasting and all that, but it's not requiring human to be involved. We see that the RPAs, the software robots, should actually be part of the workflow so that you can use them seamlessly there among manual tasks and among API-based integrations. So you should really use them as a kind of extended arm for your workflows. Good use cases for RPA are, for example, automation in legacy systems where there are no APIs or it would be way too expensive to build integrations. But also, for example, public websites which might not provide any sort of APIs can be then accessed with RPA on the user interface. Yes?
So in the fulfill, don't you think like handing over the automation should also be one of the bucket? Because coming back to your original point, robots will not be able to fulfill everything, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it has to hand over to the human.
That's exactly, yes, that's exactly correct. So the workflow, it can assign tasks to the RPA, but it should also, of course, assign tasks to humans in the same way. And from user experience point of view, user doesn't need to know. They should not need to care what is the execution model there behind. The machine learning part, those are technologies that are developing really fast. But why do we position them as the third thing here? They are just enablers. They enable, for example, pattern recognition and anomaly detection, enable a lot of things on ServiceNow, but they are not the use cases themselves. You can use those to then develop the capabilities like the workflows like RPA, like chatbot. For example, natural language processing is something very much needed for the chatbot. And in the demo today, you will see a case where I will be talking to an Amazon Alexa, and that will then trigger a workflow that will actually be executed by a RPA. But before we go to that demo, something still important in this, and especially on the user experience side, is that it's easy to switch over. So if you have here the self-service, the traditional way of having a catalog item that collects structured data, triggers a workflow and triggers orchestration, and then on the bottom part you have an unstructured request, an email, for example, and then you are doing natural language processing based on it and triggering automation, RPA, for example. You need to be able to use all of these capabilities without having kind of separate environments for those. So going from unstructured request to a workflow, structured workflow, or vice versa, that's really a key enabler for you to be able to efficiently use AI and robotics in service management. Now I will come to these couple of example cases. First one is the chatbot, the virtual agent, and a little bit about what's inside a chatbot. So when you develop a chatbot, it has to understand certain phrases. A lot of these chatbots have basic understanding. They have natural language processing embedded, so they can understand a lot of languages, but there's always something to be taught still, because in your organization context you have terms that are specific to your organization, your business units, your location departments, the names for your systems, etc. So that's something you need to still focus on that side. But then most important thing is to understand what are the intents of the users. So then the natural language processing links the phrase to an intent. So in this example case, user is writing to a chatbot that I would need a new laptop. That is then linked to an intent called order a laptop. And that intent is then linked to questions or prompts. There can be a number of them, but in this case it's just asking that which of the following models would you prefer, and it's presented as a card where you can then click on the one that you want. There could be a number of questions which are then saved to slots or variables in the memory of the chatbot. And finally, when it has all the variables collected, then it will trigger the fulfillment. And now the chatbot is writing that, great, after approval from your manager, one standard laptop will be arriving at your default location in 3 business days. How does it know all of this? So if this would be a standalone chatbot, I don't know if many of you have used chatbots, but they often tend to be standalone and they don't understand the service context. But here, obviously, it understands that this item requires my manager's approval. It knows that what is my default location, and it also knows the delivery SLA for this specific laptop. And actually, it already here knew that what are the laptop models available for my user profile. For that to be possible, you need the information architecture. And this is an example here. It could be much more extensive, but if the discussion here then continues that I would be chatting again to the chatbot that I'm contacting you about my order for MacBook. It's not that much information at that point yet. So when the chatbot knows or it identifies that yes, MacBook is a product, and this specific user who's talking to me now actually has that product, they have an asset of that product model, and it was delivered to that user with the request number, this and that. They can already provide a relevant answer that actually your request number, this and that, has been completed. How can we help you with that? So instead of providing irrelevant questions, it does know a lot about the user context here. The user continues then, yes, I have received it, but it's broken. And this is when the robot then brings the feelings to the picture. It says that sorry to hear that, but it knows also what process to trigger. So it says that I have registered incident for you, and our on-site engineer will be in contact with you within an hour. So actually hiding the complexity of IT processes. Users often don't know what's incident management, what's request fulfillment, and so on. This is hiding it from the user, but it's able to trigger the right process for the IT, and it's also able to communicate the service promise. Since we know who is the user and we know the on-site service for their location, we can actually check from ServiceNow what's the response SLA for that location, and in the communication we then tell the expectation or set the expectation for the user. Naturally, we still in the chatbot, it confirms that or asks that is the default location where I'm at the moment, and once that's confirmed, then it can send the on-site engineer there. So this sort of relevant discussion with the user, it's rather difficult to implement, but it's impossible to implement without a good information architecture and without the service management platform there that holds all of this data. I think these are use cases where our customers are often realizing the benefit of having these second era structures. So why do we define what are our services? Why do we have these assets and CMDB and all that in ServiceNow in such a structured format? These are then what that enables this kind of use cases. Now, I cannot continue with this example because probably the on-site engineer will not be a robot. We actually have at our booth 1620 the Pepper robot, so you can go and see that might be an on-site engineer in the future, but not yet. But when we look at this fulfill part, RPA is something that is now a lot helping our customers to implement automation in areas where it has been either too expensive or simply impossible previously. So to quickly define what it is, workflow-based automation. ServiceNow workflow can create predefined tasks for different assignment groups, and maybe that's not even automation, it's more like orchestrating the work of the people. If that's on the one end, and then on the other end you have full automation, so you use orchestration, you call the APIs of different systems and fully automate the delivery. RPA is somewhere between that. So it's actually not using the APIs necessarily, it's using typically the user interface of the system, but still it's able to execute on that human interface automatically without humans involved. So it's using the systems like human, but in an automated way. And there are really good use cases for that, but we see that you should, in big picture, you should combine the best out of these different automation methods. So there's certainly reasons to use ServiceNow workflow, ServiceNow orchestration for a number of use cases where you need good, where the volumes are high, you have good APIs available, you need a lot of stability. But then there are plenty of legacy systems where you cannot connect to, and that's where RPA is helpful. But what we have now launched this week actually is connectors. So we work with UiPath, RPA tool, and for the UiPath you will soon find from the marketplace the activities. So what it does, the activities can be dragged and dropped to the workflows of the RPA, and those are ServiceNow activities, and they connect to the ServiceNow out-of-the-box APIs and pick up tasks from ServiceNow assignment groups, but they also then update the tasks in ServiceNow, and they can do a number of other things like update the catalog items or CMDB and so on. So it's really easy to connect these two worlds nowadays to work seamlessly together. All right, and now we go to the demo part. So how does this actually look in real life? And let's see that the audio works. Actually, just a few words about the demo so you understand the context. So in this demo landscape, I'm now an account executive, and I represent a company called Robot Enterprises. And I've been just at a customer, and I have closed a new deal with a company called Sofigate. And as an account executive, I really hate our CRM system. It's a legacy CRM, and the last thing I would like to do when I'm in the good mood, just have won the case, is to open that legacy CRM and start creating the new customer in the CRM. So I rather do something more innovative, and that's why I have a personal assistant in my room. It's not a person, but it's this Amazon Alexa. You can see on the screen, and let's see what happens. Alexa, ask ServiceNow to add a new customer.
Okay, tell me name of the company. Start by saying company name is, followed by the name.
Company name is Sofigate Services.
Great. New customer with name Sofigate Services will be available in CRM system within a minute. If there is anything more I can help you with, please let me know.
Okay, so now Alexa has collected the data. It didn't collect much data, only the name of the customer, and you will soon see why. But since this has now collected all the data and it can start execution, now the RPA is coming into picture. You can see here the workflow in UiPath, and it's now then starting the execution. In real life, this would be a scheduled workflow, but in this demo, I will press the run button. And when the run button is clicked, then the workflow starts, and the first thing it does, it opens a browser. So just like a human would do, it goes to ServiceNow with its own credentials. And on ServiceNow, it will then open My Tasks view, and then it will pick up the task that is assigned to the robot. And from the task, it will navigate to the requested item where we have the one variable we collected from the user available, which is the name of the customer, Sofigate Services in this case. So it copies that name and it logs into a company database. This is from Finland, the public database of all the companies, and it's searching this company from the database. It finds a lot of information, contact information and company ID and this kind of things, and it copies the data to its own memory, and then it opens the legacy CRM, which is a desktop software, and it starts creating a new customer in the CRM. It copy-pastes the data to the CRM system and then clicks on save, and we have the new customer recorded. But the process doesn't end there. It's still logging into ServiceNow, and it's updating this task to get that logged and recorded at what was done. And finally, we are at the end of the workflow. So what just happened? What's behind all of this? Amazon Alexa there is just the virtual assistant that I discussed with, and it's able to understand my speech and understand the words and then translate that into intents. So we have actually published a skill on Alexa, which is called ServiceNow, and it links the ServiceNow intents, like in this case, add a new customer, to Alexa, and then Alexa just collects the data from me and then communicates that to ServiceNow. In this case, the first message to ServiceNow was the intent I wanted to use, add a new customer, but then ServiceNow told back to Alexa that now you need to still ask the name of the customer. And once Alexa had collected the name of the customer, then ServiceNow actually had all the data needed to start the correct workflow. It's rather simple model how these two work together, and all the logic in this case is on ServiceNow. Alexa is just the communication channel and natural language processing. Then the workflow, again, that's also really simple. It only created one catalog task. Obviously, in real life, there could be approvals, there could be manual tasks and a lot of other things in the workflow, but here it only created one catalog task. And then the RPA, UiPath, logged into ServiceNow, picked up that task, and then logged into also this company database and fetched all the needed data from these two systems. And then it logged into the CRM and put that information there. And then finally updated ServiceNow, and what this means is that now the workflow could continue with some next steps, or in this case it actually sends out an email to the user that now the customer has been added, and the user experience from the user point of view is kind of, they don't know who did it, they don't even need to know, but they just get an email that it's all done now. And of course all the humans, or just one human involved, was happy. So this is a real-life example. Often it can get more complex than that, but a simple example of what is already possible. We have used Alexa also for recording incidents to ServiceNow, for ordering laptops, etc. For simple use cases already now, it's really nice and easy, but I think there's a lot of potential in this in the future. And what it really means is that we used to have assistants at the offices. We don't typically have them anymore, but now the digital assistants are coming and they can actually do a lot of the same things. So to conclude with some top takeaways, there's certainly great potential in using robotics and artificial intelligence in service management, but you should not do that so that you compromise user experience or you compromise your business logic and business rules. That's why you need to design this carefully, and that's why the robots also need a service management platform behind it. So with that, I conclude the presentation, and I would like to hear your questions and comments. From the back, please. I will come a little closer, sir. Okay, so is there a plan to introduce other connectors to other RPAs than UiPath? Well, we are partnering with UiPath, so we don't have a plan, but I believe someone else might have a plan because it's certainly an important feature. And I think RPA has been quite well adopted in finance, maybe also in HR, but in IT service management, it's quite low what I've seen, and there's a lot of potential in using RPA also on IT side. So I think whatever RPA tool you're using, there's a great benefit of integrating that with ServiceNow. Please.
So you mentioned about the importance of information architecture in AI, and one of your slides has this workflow that behind, I think it's called chatbot architecture. So when we design a chatbot, do we have to map out all of the possible scenario of the conversation of how it could be? Does it have to be deterministic in order for us to automate?
Yeah, the question is that when you define and develop a chatbot, do you need to model all the possible conversation paths? Yes and no. For some chatbot technologies, that's the way you do it. But we've been working with IBM Watson, for example, and there is more intelligence in it so that it can understand. You can sort of build it in a modular way, and it can go from one path to another when it understands something. So you don't need to model the end-to-end for each and every possible case, but more you model the different elements in a modular way, and then the chatbot can direct the questions to the right path. And also the way that the chatbot can be thought is not just that you model the conversation, but also in IBM Watson, at least, we've been teaching it a lot by giving feedback. I think that's a big potential in future. When you have the chatbot and the service desk using chat on the same platform, hopefully in future it will be possible that the chatbot will be actually monitoring the human chat discussions and learning from there. I haven't seen that solution yet, but I hope it's coming. Please.
So if you were going through the levels of automation, you said that full automation with APIs is really where it should go first in the goal. If your RPA tool has the ability to execute REST requests, is it better to execute those REST requests instead of having the RPA tool click into ServiceNow and log in?
Your question is that when you have the RPA tool, is it better to use the APIs or have the RPA to log into the tool? In the demo, for the demonstration purposes, it was using the UI of ServiceNow. But I do think it's better to use the APIs when possible. And the activities that we have now launched for UiPath, those exactly use the APIs. So I think the UI should be used only when that's the best way and sometimes the only way to access it. Any other questions? Please.
From a design perspective, do you think it's better to have your ITSM platform push to your RPA platform or your RPA platform to pull from your ITSM platform?
Yeah, is it better to have the service management platform pulling data or pushing data to RPA, or vice versa, RPA pulling data out of the ITSM? We've done both. The most common solution for us has been that the RPA is kind of pulling for tasks, but they do have APIs I think it's really dependent on the use case. For example, how time critical is it, and if the speed matters, if it's important that the execution happens immediately, then it's a good idea to have the service management actually calling an API of the RPA and triggering that. I think that's the main principle there. If no further questions or comments, thank you for joining the session.